embodiments of divine love. Sairam. Today's message is an exposition of Lord Jesus Christ given by Bhagwan Sri Satya Sai Baba on Christmas Day over many years. The birth of Jesus Christ. Swami says, there are various theories about the birth date of Jesus based on the bright star that appeared at his birth. It is visible once in 800 years, it is said. Some say that he was born on the 15th day of September, but he was born at 3:15 a.m. early morning on December 28th. It was a Sunday. The star that appeared that day appears only once in 800 years. Its appearance had nothing to do with the birth of Jesus Christ. There is no rule that when divine energy or divine incarnation descends on earth, a star has to appear. That is the opinion of devotees only. But Jesus was himself a star of infinite value, spreading brilliance of infinite dimension. Why was it another less brilliant group? Jesus' original name. Bhagwan Baba said, Jesus was honored by the populace as Christ, for they found in his thoughts, words and deeds no trace of ego. He had no envy or hatred, or was full of love and charity, humility and sympathy. Jesus' original name was Isa, which when repeated is Sai. Isa and Sai both mean Ishvara, God, the eternal absolute, the Satchit Ananda. In Tibetan manuscript as the monastery where Isa spent some years, his name is written as Issa, which means the Lord of all beings. What is the meaning of Jesus? Bhagwan Baba continues. In Christianity, the term Isu or Jesus is used to describe Christ. This term also signifies the oneness of divinity. The inner significance of the term Isu is the recognition of the one divine in all beings. What Swami says about the birthplace of Jesus Christ. Bhagwan explains, 2000 years ago, in Palestine, a province of the Roman Empire, there were Jews professing Judaism. The Jews believed in one God called Jehovah. They believed that God would send a Messiah for the people of Israel. Jerusalem was the sacred city of the Jews and continued to be so even under the Romans. This was a time when Jesus was born. The visit of three kings to see Christ at his birth. Swami says, it is said that when Jesus was born in a manger, three kings were led by a star to Jesus' place of birth. In fact, they were not kings, but three shepherds. One of them, seeing the infant Jesus, observed, this child will be the lover of God. A second one said, no, God will love him. The third one said, verily, he is God himself. The true significance of these three statements is to love God is to be his messenger. To be loved by God is to be a son of God. The final state is to be one with God. As Jesus said, I and my Father are one. Thus all persons are messengers of God. Swami says, it is said that when Jesus was born in a manger, 3 kings were led by a star to Jesus' place of birth. In fact, they were not kings but 3 shepherds. One of them, seeing the infant Jesus, observed, "This child will be lover of God." A second one said, "No, God will love him." The third one said, "Verily, he is God himself." The true significance of these 3 statements is to love God is to be his messenger. To be loved by God is to be a son of God. The final state is to be one with God. As Jesus said, "I and my Father are one." Thus, all persons are messengers of God. This means that they should divinize themselves. When can men call themselves sons of God? Swami says, recognize what pure actions are done by God, selflessly for the sake of all. There is no trace of self-interest in him. Everything men do, speak, or think is born out of selfishness. Men can describe themselves as sons of God only when they are completely free from selfishness and become godly. To call yourself the Son of God, you have to manifest the qualities of the Father. The early life of Jesus. Bhagwan Baba said, Jesus exemplified the spirit of social service. The inspiration for this came from his mother, Mary. From his childhood, Mary taught him such good qualities as truth, kindness, compassion, and justice. In his 12th year, Jesus and his parents went to Jerusalem for a festival. In the crowd, the parents lost the trace of Jesus and searched for him everywhere. Not finding him anywhere, Mary sat under a tree and prayed to God to come to her help. At that moment, a thought flashed in her mind that Jesus was perhaps in a nearby temple. Jesus was there sitting in a corner of the temple and listening to the words of the priest. Mary affectionately rushed towards him and embraced him. "Child, what agony I went through on your account," she said. Jesus told her, "Mother, why should you have any fear? Those who believe in the world will have fears, but why should anyone believing in God fear at all? I am in the company of my Father. Why do you fear? You taught me that God is everything for us. How then can you worry like this?" Jesus had learned his lessons from his mother and developed his spiritual faith. After they returned from Jerusalem, Jesus felt that service to his parents was his foremost duty because he owed everything to them. In this spirit, he used to assist his father in his carpentry work. When Joseph, his father, passed away, he sought his mother permission to devote himself to the service of the needy and the forlorn. Jesus was a Karana Janma, a master born with a purpose, the mission of restoring love, charity, and compassion. He had no attachment to the self, nor paid any heed to joy or sorrow, loss or gain. He had a heart that responded to the call of anguish. He went about the land preaching the lesson of love. His life was liberation for the upliftment of humanity. Jesus' spiritual work. Bhagwan Satya Sai Baba explained to us, Jesus announced himself as a messenger of God. He spent many years in austerities so that he could shower compassion and love on all humanity. Later, he asked himself, am I just a messenger, or am I more closely related to God, a part of God with the divine as my essence? Jesus spent 12 years wandering alone in the deserts, engaged in this inquiry. At the end of this period, he returned to the society of men and announced, I am the Son of God. At this time, the priests of the holy temples of Jerusalem had become corrupt and commercialized. They had deteriorated into proud and selfish men. Jesus condemned them and tried to root out the evil practices. For all forms in the eyes of Jesus were divine forms. He could not tolerate any action which belied this status. So when asked by people who he was, he could reply, I and my Father are one. Jesus tried to teach the fatherhood of God and brotherhood of man. Tradition-minded and egoistic men considered Jesus a false prophet, and they tried by every means to thwart his mission. Jesus, however, did not waver. Faced with opposition, he continued to be an example of living truth and tried to purify the society. Jesus' ministry. Swami says, after leaving home, Jesus had himself baptized by John. Then for 40 days, Jesus observed severe austerities without food and drink. At first, he considered himself as a messenger of God. After the penance, he realized that he was the Son of God. He began his ministry with a group of fishermen as his first disciples. He told them that they should first seek the kingdom of heaven. To enter that kingdom, they had to cultivate loving hearts. Then, their hearts would become the kingdom of heaven. Jesus further declared to them, I and my Father are one. He continued, love must be manifested as service or seva. Human service must take the form of food for the hungry, solace for the forlorn, consolation for the sick and the suffering. Jesus wore himself out in such seva or selfless service. As Jesus went on with his preaching and drew multitudes towards him, some of the priests and those in authority grew envious of his popularity. This happens in all countries. They started persecuting him and charging him with treason. Jesus, however, continued his mission of love and righteousness, first as the messenger of God and later as the Son of God. The inner meaning of Jesus' teaching given at the Last Supper. Bhagwan Baba says, Jesus said that the bread taken in the Last Supper was his flesh and the wine his blood. He meant that all beings alive with flesh and blood are to be treated as he himself, and that no distinction should be made between friend or foe, we or they. Everybody sustained by the bread, every drop flowing in the veins of every living being is his, God, animated by the activity that the wine imparted to it. That is to say, every man is divine and has to be revered as such. The purpose of Christmas celebration. Swami advises us, this day is a holy day, the day on which Jesus was born. He announced himself as the messenger of God. In fact, all humans are born as messengers of God. The sole purpose of this human career is to propagate the omnipresence of God, His might and glory. No one has incarnated for merely consuming quantities of food and catering to one's senses. Human life is much more precious than that. That is why the capacity to appreciate beauty, truth, and goodness has been endowed only on man. Religions arise from the minds of good men who crave to make all men good. They strive to eliminate the evils and cure the bad. It is therefore appropriate that the birthday of Jesus, who felt the need to save mankind and who strove to achieve it, be celebrated. But the celebration must take the form of adherence to the teachings, loyalty to the principles, practicing the discipline, and experiencing the awareness of the divine that he sought to arouse. These days, the world is deriving satisfaction in mere words and in witnessing clever ruses designed to cover up one's faults. The birthdays of the great are honored by such hypocrisy and external pomp. There is no examination in the light of the message they give, nor any effort to practice it and derive the bliss it promises. In closing, Bhagwan Sri Satya Sai Baba said, Christmas belongs to all. The birthday of Jesus must be celebrated by all of mankind. For such Karana Janmas, masters born with a purpose, belong to the whole human race. They should not be confined to a single country or community. Sarah.